Hi, my name is Jim Shear. I'm a physical therapist. I've been treating complex regional pain syndrome for 12 or 13 years. I work with a multidisciplinary program. And today I'm going to share with you some concepts that I've come up with in terms of things that are irritating to the nervous system, things that are calming to the nervous system, and kind of the range that we have to stay in there. I call these things challengers and resources. Legal disclaimer. I am a physical therapist and I'm licensed in the state of California, but I'm not your physical therapist, and nothing that I say here constitutes medical advice for your condition. Please share these videos with your physical therapists, your medical doctors, and others. Hopefully we can get more info out there about CRPS and we can improve treatment. So first thing we're going to look at here is things that irritate the nervous system. We have things that calm the nervous system, symptom modulation. And then there's things that are passive and there's things that are active. So, we have this box here that's things that happen to you that increase your symptoms, right? We might also consider these DIMS, or danger in me. That's how the Australians talk about this. Things that you do to increase your symptoms. These are things that you like rubbing your arm or exercising or anything that kind of challenges the nervous system and causes a little bit of discomfort. Then we have the symptom modulator here. And these are things that decrease symptoms, calm the nervous system. And again, the Australians might call these SIMS. And there's things that passively happen to you that calm the nervous system. Putting a hot pack on, taking medication, any of those that kind of zoning out and watching TV. Then there's active things that we can do to calm down the nervous system. So when we look at kind of those passive irritants, those things that are just that are just there in our environment that are irritating things. These are things that initially we try to avoid. We try to decrease these things. We're not really trying to introduce these things. We're trying to kind of, can we back away from these things a little bit to help calm things down? Later on, they may become challengers. We may put ourselves in an environment that's a little colder, or we may put ourselves in a crowded environment where we might get bumped into. And those might increase our symptoms a little bit. We have active irritants. I would say the majority of what I would call challengers fit into this category. And again, challengers are these things that we use to kind of actively challenge the nervous system. These things are generally used to increase resilience in the body. So we're doing things purposefully to kind of bring on the symptoms a little bit, to make you more resilient, or to make the patient more resilient to these stimuli. One really important thing is that these need to be dosed properly. Oftentimes, when I see someone that has been treated somewhere else with CRPS, one of the problems is they kind of blew the person out of the water in the first couple of days. So, to begin with, we don't need to focus as much on these things, but eventually we do to build resilience. Passive modulators. These are, again, things that calm down the nervous system. One thing that's important about this is these tend to be faster but less consistent results than active strategies. And when I say less consistent, I don't mean that they don't work every time. I mean that they're not available to you. So if the only strategy you have to getting out of a flare-up is ketamine, then you have to go in, get a ketamine infusion. That's it's limiting. It's great that you have it. It's a good tool, but and it may give very quick symptom reduction. Same thing with like the injections and stuff like that. May give very, very fast results in terms of decreasing the symptoms. And we may need to start with some of these things before we can introduce more exercises. So I'm not against them, but these aren't things that you can use on your own, and that's important to keep in mind. They tend to be strong, they tend to work quickly, but we don't always have access to them anywhere you go. Active modulators. So I call this building resources, and this is kind of what I focus on. Is showing people how they can calm their own symptoms down themselves. They generally are a little slower than the passive techniques. So for instance, as a physical therapist, if I find someone responds to end range nerve stretching, which I do a lot of with CRPS when it's appropriate, me taking them in there and passively stretching them may calm down their symptoms a lot faster. But if they're reliant on that, then they don't have those tools themselves. But if they do a median nerve stretch, 100 times a day, they might get that same kind of symptom response, that symptom reduction. Or if they do relaxation, they can get that same kind of result. And it's not as strong of a result, but they can do it consistently all the time throughout the day. Also, utilizing these things promotes active coping and increases self-efficacy. And it teaches that physical therapy is safe. Oftentimes, people come from these backgrounds that they believe that physical therapy is not safe because, as I've said before, they were just kind of presented with challengers before. So some examples of modulators. Relaxation training, visualization, graded motor imagery, meditation. These are all independent. Not independent, they're independent to the individual. So it's important that you understand that none of these categories are fixed for any specific exercise. You kind of have to decide what effect that has on an individual. And, you have to work together to come up with things that are active modulators, things that are, as I call them, resources. Because visualizing running for one person might bring on their symptoms. For another person, that actually might calm their symptoms down a little bit. So this varies. Or reading about pain, that might be overwhelming at some point in time. But later on, it might be more appropriate. Building resources. I'm going to focus on this a lot. It's really important to build an internal locus of control with people with CRPS, with individuals with CRPS. As I said, this isn't generic. One man's poison is another man's medicine. So, one person will calm their symptoms down, will flare another person up. There's some other examples here that I put out. So listening to music while doing exercise, right? Can we do things actively to calm down while we're challenging the nervous system? I would still consider this a resource because we're utilizing it to do more exercise. Another thing that kind of is weird that could fit into this category would be utilizing a cane or crutch to walk longer distances. Hey, I'm getting you out of the house more. I had someone recently and they were kind of avoidant about using crutches or using a cane. And so they were inside all the time. So, I really stressed to them, hey, can we use these crutches so that you can ambulate more in the community? So you can get a more normalized gait pattern and walk more. So stuff like that, I still consider utilizing resources because we're encouraging activity with it. Something that wouldn't be in here is pain medication, but this is important. We also need to find a significant reduction in symptoms with this. So if you do abdominal breathing with a person and their symptoms are the same and it doesn't decrease, well, then try visualization. If visualization doesn't work, tell it, have them watch cat videos, have them actively do things that calm them down. I wouldn't consider watching cat videos really is something they can do anywhere. But if they need something to calm down, like between exercise or something like that, that might be something that you'd use. But these vary a lot between the individuals. Challengers. I don't try to introduce these in the first 2 weeks. I don't want to flare them up in the first 2 weeks. As we're going to get into, I think they have a very narrow window of acceptable activity during that time before they get into a flare up. Initially, when we're doing challengers, you might just do 1 rep. I might just say, hey, can you touch your hand like that and bring it away? Visualization or graded motor imagery might be a challenger. So as I said before, or nerve stretching might be a challenger. Some people, these things calm down their symptoms. Some things, these are the things that actually activate their symptoms. Pacing should really be stressed with challengers. So you're going to do a little bit of this, and then you're going to take a break and you're going to back off. That's really, really, really important. So another important concept here, and the reason that we're not going to introduce challenges right away is because they just don't have a high capacity for it. So if we have someone that's young, healthy, an athlete, kind of this is what I'd call their therapeutic range. So we can exercise them a little bit and they'll benefit from it. We can exercise them a lot and they'll benefit from it. There's probably a sweet spot in the middle, but this is a bell curve, right? But there's a wide range that we can do with that young ACL patient on how hard we want to push them or how much we want to back off, and they'll still be okay. When we start talking about someone that's a little more elderly and has chronic knee-OA, not only is their activity level, lower and their kind of therapeutic range lower before we did too much or we didn't do anything at all, but it's also a little narrower. So there's kind of a tighter band that we have to work in. And then when we get to CRPS, they're right on top of each other. One thing that's unique about this is that with CRPS, it seems like there's a very distinct line that we hit when they do too much. And I think there's a mast cell activation or there's an immune response that occurs kind of at that level. But we hit that zone and then it becomes a positive feedback loop. And it will just get worse and worse and worse over hours. Versus these people will just be a little more sore. This will continue to kind of build. So we need to be aware that there is kind of a more distinct line with this. In the beginning, one of the problems is these lines might be kind of on top of each other. So the difference between not doing enough and doing too much is, there is no range there, which is why I suggest not starting with challengers, because we can overdose them so easily. And they might already be hanging out up here. And we're actually trying to pull them down a little bit so we can calm things down. But it does really depend on the individual. What things that are specific here with CRPS is that starting with challengers first may be appropriate for other chronic pain conditions, but it's not appropriate for CRPS. But fibromyalgia, yeah, we might start off with strength training exercises. We might start off with the bike. We might not start off with things just to calm down the nervous system. We might actually be exercising and moving that area that hurts a little bit more to begin with. Lower irritability does allow us to start with those challengers easier. I hope you guys have learned a lot from this lecture, and I plan on putting together a continuing education course. I'm going to go over a lot of the specifics in terms of what are good challengers, kind of how do we dose those. I'm going to go over what are some of my favorite resources and what are the things that you can give people to do. There's things that fall in the orthopedic realm, like snags. There's things that kind of fall in the calming down the nervous system realm, like deep breathing. But we'll go into a lot of specifics of how to dose these, how to pace these, how to do graded exposure with these. Until next time.